Hi everybody, this is Greg Tanner for The Mindful Eye and the Daily Critique. Today's image was submitted by Mike, who's a beginning photographer. Mike shot this with a Canon Rebel. He used an effective focal length of around 75 millimeters and at ISO 400, stopped down to f16 and exposed the file for a thousandth of a second. The backstory on this one is that Mike shot this image at a reservoir at sunrise in New Jersey. He said the colors were amazing. He was just sort of shooting as fast as he could. And it wasn't until after he was reviewing the image that he saw one of his favorite things about this shot, which are these really beautiful shadows that are radiating out from the backlight through the low fog that's on the lake. And in the question and comment section of the submission form, Mike says that he'd like to accentuate the shadows, possibly add a little bit more contrast to the sky, and maybe get rid of what he feels like is a color cast. And so we'll talk about those digital darkroom things in just a minute. Let's just talk about this image at the level of capture for a minute. Like Mike, I love these shadows. They're a component of the real dramatic backlight combined with this beautiful moment of the low fog on the lake. That's what's creating the shadows in here. It's what's creating this really beautiful sort of wisp of a cloud out here, the fog coming off of the lake that's creating some form and a lot of depth in the middle ground, and the backlight on the clouds is doing a really beautiful thing here with these kind of radiating beams of light that are rhyming the radiating shadows, and it creates this sort of ellipse of light and this radial feeling in the middle of the image that's a beautiful juxtaposition to the other major design element, all of these rhyming very strong very linear lines, the lines of the trees and the snags, the hard line of the horizon, and the shelves of clouds. So there's a lot of things to like about this image, a very dramatic image, an image that gets my attention, and a lot of different qualities of line and different rhyming and echoing things that sort of move me all the way through the image. I want to talk first about at the level of capture, a couple of other things that we might have considered when we were shooting this image. One of the things that I think about here is seeing a variation of this where Mike maybe shot with a much wider lens, maybe an effective focal length of something like 24 millimeters if Mike had it. You know, I don't know what's down here. It may be too busy along the edge of the lake, but I could see going wider to basically include another idea that I think would do a couple of things for the image. I'd love to see more of this reflected in the foreground. We might have to have a tripod and to bracket some exposures because we would now start we would be dealing with a dynamic range that would be beyond, way beyond what the camera could ever deal with. You're starting to see just a hint of the reflection right here, but to me it sure would be nice to see a lot more of it. It would help to balance the top and the bottom of the image even more, and it also would be sort of neat because you would start off with a dark area and an area that's potentially cool, then get to the warm, and then end back up again with the cool. I just feel like it could add depth, make things more dynamic and more balanced all at the same time. The other thing that I think about when I'm looking at this image is Mike's done something that's really smart here. With a digital camera, it has a very difficult time seeing detail in the brightest things in the scene. And digital cameras are getting better at this with new tone curve settings and stuff, but it's still an area where digital is playing catch up to film. And Mike has taken the sun and he's put it behind this tree to keep from having more of a blowout than he already has. But I would have loved to have seen Mike try and wrap the sun around the tree just a little bit more to get a bit of a sunstar effect. This effect of the sunstar, when you use about an eighth to a quarter of the disk of the sun wrapping around a hard edge like that, can be very graphic, particularly at your smallest apertures, and Mike's at f16 here, so you could have gotten a pretty good sunstar effect. And I think that would help the image in a couple of ways. I mean, right now these blowouts are sort of flat areas and they really draw my eye because of the contrast, but then they kind of trap me in here. And if we had the sunstar, that would be something that would really draw my eye in an even more powerful way, but then once I was drawn to it, it would radiate me back out. It would move me back out into the image, and obviously it would rhyme all of this radial feeling of the paths of light and the paths of the shadows. So trying to create a sunstar effect here might have been cool. Let's look at this image from a digital darkroom standpoint, look at some of the things Mike talked about. Yes, I feel like this has a color cast, and just like Friday's critique, when I feel like an image has a color cast, then I want to deal with that in the raw converter using the white balance tool. I'm going to go to bridge, I'm going to browse the image, I'm going to do Apple R, Control R on a PC. That's going to open this image up in the raw converter. I'm going to go to the white balance tool, and I'm looking for areas of the image that have some detail that I would like to push more towards neutral. So I'm going to look at these real high mids up here that are very yellow right now, and I'm going to click there. That's going to push those towards more of a high mid gray instead of a high mid yellow, and it's going to radically change the way this image looks. And boy, do I like this a lot better, at least for part of the image, because we're now starting to bring in two ideas that can really help us have more color depth. We're starting to bring in a lot more blue, sort of the feeling of blue in the sky, and we're also starting to bring in some areas that are more neutral gray and more neutral black. So what I'm going to do is pretend that we've opened this image. I've already done that. I'm going to go back to this image, and then we're going to look at this image and this new really cool workflow pane scenario up here where all my images are. I'm going to click here, and there's the image that we've converted. And I'm going to do an Apple A. You could do Control A for select all, and then Apple C for copy, Control C on a PC. And I'm going to come back to the original shot, and I'm going to do Apple V, Control V on a PC, and paste that in on top of the original shot. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend these two. So instead of just color correcting like we did on Friday the whole file, this is one where I'm going to do a little bit of blending. And you know, this is going to be rough. Most of the corrections moving forward in this critique, and most of the time when I'm doing the daily critique, this is about Photoshop and design. So hopefully you can pick up some Photoshop things, but hopefully you understand that if we were working on this image to print, that we would be at 100%.